Hello everybody and welcome back to Financial Trading Basics. This is part 5, and in this part we'll be covering Bitcoin and blockchain. I've been in Bitcoin since about 2015, I believe, whenever it was right. I think it was like between $280 and $400 a coin. What we're going to talk about is how Bitcoin functions, why I'm bullish on Bitcoin, my price predictions, and I'm going to, what I think change. I don't really think my ideas in economy are all that new or different, but I think the conversation of the general financial experts or just in the financial environment is kind of wrong when it addresses Bitcoin. So I'm going to address what I think are errors in popular conversation. So what is Bitcoin and how does it function? Well, Bitcoin is a decentralized ledger. And what that means is you have two people. Johnny sends Billy some Bitcoin. And those are if you've seen public and private keys, it's a string of 14 numbers and characters. Those are how you transact on Bitcoin. And I'll cover how you actually set up a wallet as well. But so when Johnny sends Billy some Bitcoin, that data is stored on a block. And that block, there's a decentralized. Okay, so if you have the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve says, "Hey, this United States dollar, we just minted this dollar. You can go exchange this for goods." In 1933, that dollar was backed by gold. You could take a physical U.S. Treasury note to a bank and receive some amount of gold for it, and that stopped in 1933. And then up until 1968, you could take a U.S. Treasury note and exchange it for silver. Today, and ever since 1968, the U.S. Treasury note is not backed by absolutely any commodity at all. So the first thing I wanted to say is you already live in a economy that is completely virtual. And the decentralization is the difference, right? There's one United States Federal Reserve. I don't know how many active nodes there are on blockchain, but it's not restricted to a single country or to a single person at all. But what happens is when Johnny sends Billy some Bitcoin, that data gets shared publicly, gets broadcasted to the network. And all of these computers that are running Bitcoin nodes, which are called Bitcoin miners, and what they do is they sit here and I'm not personally familiar with the protocols and the actual algorithms. I will be reviewing them and probably doing a follow-up video on them. But once they validate that a transaction has gone through correctly, and remember, this is I just drew one computer, but I think there's tens of thousands, but I could be off on that number. But there's thousands for sure, at least. And so once all of those different thousands of computers or nodes say, "Hey, we see the same transaction," they all try to guess some mathematical formula, and when they guess it correctly, that data gets verified and it's stored in the blockchain, and that's, if you send a transaction, this is when it gets confirmed. You'll have one or two confirmations. And the way new Bitcoins enter the ecosystem is through this verification through hashing process. Once a computer guesses the right mathematical solution, they get rewarded with some Bitcoin. And that is how new Bitcoin enters the ecosystem. And that is capped at 21 million coins. 21 million. In contrast, the United States Federal Reserve just put in 1.5 trillion just in the past week for economic stimulus as a response to the coronavirus. So the big differences that I was talking about is, one, people will say that Bitcoin is not a store of value like gold. Gold is not a store of value and Bitcoin is not a store of value. You already live in a completely virtual ecosystem. So the real question is does Bitcoin solve some problem that already exists in the Federal Reserve, not even Federal Reserve is specific to the United States, but to central banking in general? And the answer is yes. I mean, the transaction times, the fees for transacting on the blockchain are substantially lower than through banking wire transfers. But I don't think that Bitcoin is not going to replace fiat currency. I don't even think Bitcoin will take a substantial portion of the global GDP. I think the minimum case, adoption case for Bitcoin is, again, very, very high financed institutions or private companies that want to send money or Bitcoin for a very cheap price. I think the consumer adoption, where everyone is actually transacting with Bitcoin to buy bread and smaller everyday items, I think that's either farther off or just not as likely at all. Because the real point is you just want to, I mean, the point of the Federal Reserve is literally to ensure economic stability. And that would be another big criticism to Bitcoin. They'll say it's not a good store of value in the short term, right? You go from $200, $400 a coin to $20,000 to $1,000 or $3,000 to $10,000 back to $5,000 right around today. Well, again, 3, 5, 10, 20 years on an economy is so short-sighted. It's really just not a meaningful conversation. So I like to approach my Bitcoin stuff from economics and mathematics, not from actually just saying, hey, I've made some money, and I have made good money on Bitcoin. That's why I just have up here, Bitcoin is a currency and nothing stores value. I joke, I say it's not Bitcoin, it's Bitcorn. It's a commodity, go harvest it. But the simple fact is it transacts faster and for cheaper, and you already live in an economy that's completely virtual, whether or not it's labeled that way. Now moving on. So now just briefly covering wallets and security. I guess in the last slide I didn't really say, but another one of the big things about Bitcoin is it's virtually, you can't counterfeit it or steal it. You can scam it, but you can't forge Bitcoin, as opposed to a United States dollar you can. Granted, I have no personal awareness of how easy it is to how easy it is to forge United States dollars. But I think there's estimated, like, I don't know, kind of guessing, but I want to say it's like $800 million of counterfeit money in the United States. I read that somewhere. But the three components for a Bitcoin to literally acquire and hold Bitcoin, there's several exchanges. Coinbase is probably the most prominent. But when on the last slide, when I said it's not the everyday buying bread and everyday commodities or everyday needs with Bitcoin, is probably not that likely. Because if you go, or at least not in the next 5, 10 years, if you go and try to buy Bitcoin, you'll see that. I mean, what do you do? You literally put cash into an ATM or you use an exchange. And Coinbase is probably the most popular. And there's other ones out there, but you'd set up a debit card or a ACH bank connection. That's how you buy Bitcoin. Now, how do you store Bitcoin? Well, there's really 3 kind of options. You have software wallets. Just an example is Electrum, and that's literally just on your desktop or on your laptop. Then you have hardware wallets such as Trezor, and this is literally like a little USB stick. You can find them on Amazon. And then the third option is cold wallet with offline key generation. This is the most secure. You'll definitely see a lot of exchanges getting hacked. You should not keep much money on an exchange. I keep very, very small amounts on Coinbase. Most of mine is offline. But these are just the different ways that you store Bitcoin. And again, I don't really have much data on how secure software wallets are and versus hardware wallets. But I haven't really heard of many of these getting hacked unless you're doing something stupid. But cold wallet with offline key generation is definitely the best. But what that is you literally download a little or you either download or you have a little program on your desktop, then you disconnect from the internet, you generate your key, and then you write it down. It's literally on a piece of paper off of any computer at all. And then you literally cannot get hacked that way. And so those are the types of wallets and security. So in conclusion, here are my price predictions for what I think is going to happen for Bitcoin price action. Like I said, in 2015, I think my price average is right around $380 a coin. Spike up to $20,000 in 2017, retrace to about $3,000 in the summer of 2017, come back up to around 10K just recently, and then I have a question mark for where we're going to go from here, and it is, holy shit, what's today? Today's March 15th. So I think I personally bought Bitcoin over this coronavirus downfall. I don't know if there's any correlation there. Don't really care. I have no real prediction for the next 3 to 6 months. Well, I guess 3 to 4 months. But I think we'll break. Okay, so the fundamental reason as to why I think price predictions for Bitcoin is more realistic than price predictions for a stock trade or an options trade is because you have regulated cycling. And that's the halvening event, which is you've probably read or seen everywhere. But when you have your hashing verification, the reward in Bitcoin halves every about 2 years. Again, I think it's a coin value. I don't really know what triggers the exact halvening. But when that happens, the amount of new Bitcoin introduced into the ecosystem decreases in half. So again, I'm extremely bullish on the global use cases for cryptocurrency. And I guess I'll say I'm only bullish on Bitcoin. I think there'll be a tremendous consolidation. I think there already has been. But there'll probably be some specific use cases for other coins, but I'm only bullish and only in Bitcoin. I think we'll get to the all-time high right around the 20,000 a coin in August of this year. I think we'll spike to hit a new all-time high of between $40,000 and $125,000 a coin. And I think that peak will happen around January 2021. And again, I think in any financial trade, managing the trade is what matters. Any break of the all-time high, I'll probably sell 10% of my holdings. Once we get into this range, if we get into this range, I will be decreasing my holdings up to 80%. That's even 90%. Because then I expect, right, just in the last halvening cycle from 2015 to 2017 back to now, I think we'll retrace to a bottom of 10,000 to 12,000 a coin in February to June of 2021. And that's what I think will happen. And that's it for my Bitcoin video. Thanks for watching.